All right, welcome everybody to class number 2 of the Mindset Academy. So I'm really excited to talk to y'all today. Come say hi. If you are here live, let me know that you're here. Let us know what you do, what kind of coaching you do, and really excited to talk to y'all today. We're talking about changing client perception so that you can not only help them accelerate their results, but enjoy the journey more too. So last week we talked about the true role of goals in coaching. So make sure that you check that out if you missed it, as all of these classes do build on each other, but you can still get a lot out of it even if you missed it. So make sure you join live each week as well. So you are in the right place if you do inner work with your clients, or you want to start doing inner work with your clients so that you can help them get unstuck really fast, get back to getting the results that they came to you for, whether you call yourself a coach or not. And then just as one reminder, make sure you put on your calendar next week, we are talking about dealing with client impatience. Really excited to talk about that. It's very common, very normal, and actually very healthy if you know how to deal with it as a coach, because it is truly a crucial clue to self-sabotage. So really, really excited to talk about that. Not a lot of people talk about that. And how to work with the impatience. Most people just talk about just be more patient, just be more patient. There's a lot more to it than that you can do to help people get to where they want to go faster and help them sort of relieve some of that impatience as well. So make sure you put that on your calendar. A little bit of housekeeping. If you have not yet, there are a few ways to get reminders to come on live so that you can make sure you show up and you're able to ask questions live and get the most out of this. So you can do that. All the ways you can get reminders are in the description, from email to messenger chat. You can do that so you can make sure you're here live, get your questions answered. So just so you know, as we go through the training today, make note of your questions. You're welcome to post them. I may not answer them until we get to the end. I may pause at certain points to take questions, but there'll definitely be time for questions at the end either way. So make sure that you share those with me in the comments. And if for some reason you posted it, I didn't answer it, I didn't see it, just tag me, post it again during the Q&A. I'm not trying to ignore you, I promise. I just may not have seen it. So make sure you do that so that I can see it and help get it answered. The best way to make the most of this series, take copious notes, come back, listen, rewatch it, watch the replays, synthesize it. Journal about how you are going to integrate what you learned into your business and with your clients. It's the best way to make the most out of this training. If you need help, please, please, please ask. I'm here to put you in the right direction, no matter what it is. Please share this with your friends who need this. This series is better with friends because you can buddy up, set a meeting to go over your notes and discuss how you're going to apply this in your own unique business and with your clients. So, or you can find a buddy in the group. There's a link for that as well. I can't remember if it's in the intro or not. But if you can't find that link, just tag me and I'll send you there. One last note. Everybody who comes to this training, I know, I've talked to a lot of you, and you're coming with a lot of diverse backgrounds. Some of you have tons of coach trainings, tons of personal development experience. Some of you have very little. And either one is okay, right? We start where we start, and that's fine. And so I try to design this program somewhere in the middle, because a lot of the things that I teach are they are more advanced tactics. But you should be able to learn them as a beginner too, because if you're a beginner, you want to set yourself up right from the very beginning. But I also know that a lot of the things I'm talking about, a lot of basic coach trainings don't talk about. So this will be some advanced. There may be some terms that I use that you don't totally understand. That's okay. Again, you're welcome to ask questions at any point, and I will explain it as best I can. There will be some concepts that might be beyond the scope of what I'm able to just answer in a quick question. And they kind of require an in-depth study of, but that's okay too. It's okay to feel confused at times. And I'm just, again, as long as you communicate with me, ask me, I'm happy to point you in the right direction to get more information or make a recommendation for us to work together in a more intimate way so that you can really integrate these concepts. Because here's the thing. The best coaches don't just know this stuff on an intellectual level, they live it. It's very hard for you to coach somebody else on these intellectual concepts if you are not doing this work yourself. So the best way, the best coach training there is to learn the tactics behind the coaching, like why is a coach coaching you a certain way, but also that you are doing the work. You are being coached. You know how to work yourself through the process. You can coach yourself through the process, and that's going to help you coach other people. Because if you are saying one thing and not living it, it's very hard. Your clients will reach they'll reach a point very, very quickly. They'll reach a cap very quickly, and you will not be able to help them with things that are intellectual for you. So always be, but there is no end either, right? So it's always more. There's always more evolution. You want to always just be learning and personally developing yourself, personally growing yourself. The more you grow yourself, the more you evolve yourself, the better coach you're going to be for your clients. So either way, just let me know, and I'm happy to help you move forward. So last but not least, if you want to know who I am and why I'm qualified to teach this, you can go back to class number 1, and I explained my background, many, many years of personal development and formal coach training. So make sure you listen to that. All right, excited to dive in. All right, so your clients, they have their current results in their life because of their default worldview, And the reason they have a default worldview is because of their history, their personal history, and their conditioning. People create their perception of the world, and this does inform their circumstances, but primarily we're talking about their perception of the world and the opportunities that they can perceive. They create their perception of the world based on what they think is unconsciously, right? This is unconscious. What their mind, what their ego perceives is going to cause them emotional or physical pain. All right? Anything that unconsciously to the ego does this is essentially off limits to the mind. I mean, it's like if there's even a chance it's going to cause some emotional or physical pain, the ego is like, I got to steer completely clear of it, even if it's irrational. And most of the time, it is irrational. The ego was designed to protect us from tigers that are chasing us. But the mind has the ego has sort of skewed that and misinterpreted that. And now it believes that, being rejected in a social circle is the same thing as a tiger chasing us. And so that's why the ego has a lot of misunderstandings. It's not the ego's fault. The ego isn't bad or wrong. It's a survival tool. It's a survival mechanism. But that's how we've evolved. And so anything that the ego feels like is even close to a tiger might be way far off in the corner, it's going to steer us super far clear of, very, very clear of, because it feels like it might cause us pain. And the ego's sole goal is like, I don't want to get anywhere near that tiger. But the problem with that is that if we want to achieve new results, and so the default worldview that your clients have is a function of, I think this and this and this and this and this are a tiger. And so this is where I got to stay. I got to stay in this little box so that I'm not going to get anywhere close to any of these big tigers. And so because it's like, it might cause pain. And so to the ego, it's like, listen, I know that if I stay in this box right here, that tiger can't come get me. But if I get even this much closer to it, there is a 1% chance that tiger might get me. Into the ego, that 1% chance is not worth it. But to the higher mind, there's a couple of things that happen. Number one, you want to start to train the ego that actually isn't a tiger. It's really not threatening your life and your survival. So that's one major piece of it. And then the other major piece of it is that it is worth the risk. It is worth the risk. Because what is at stake is something much bigger and more purpose and more life and more opportunity than what the current situation is and the current worldview is. So let me give you kind of an example of what that might look like. So let's say your clients want more money, okay, but they keep repelling it. And maybe you do some sort of tactical coaching with them, right? You're like, well, you can do this tactic or this this thing or that thing. But they just keep repelling it. They keep coming up with excuses and it's not working and blah, 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 right? It might be because unconsciously the ego has decided for them that more money is going to cause more stress for them at work, more responsibility, more weight on their shoulders. And to them, to their ego, that stress, is worse than not having the money. Not having the money, it sucks, but it's comfort zone. It's sort of like, yes, okay, I know this isn't going to kill me. I know that's not a tiger. It's not rational, right? But the ego thinks like, oh my God, that stress, that's the tiger. Ugh, I can't do it. It's too much. I would rather like be in this sort of uncomfortable comfort zone than potentially feel that there's going to be more stress for me. Let's say your client wants to lose weight, but unconsciously they're worried that, and again, this is not going to be conscious for most people, right? If they're really struggling to lose weight, let's say that they might be unconsciously worried that they're not going to be taken as seriously at work if they're too thin. And not being taken seriously would cause emotional distress. It might cause them to, lose their job and unconsciously. Maybe they wouldn't get a raise. Maybe they just don't like it. Like it's really important to be taken seriously. It's very uncomfortable to not be taken seriously. So it's going to seem counterintuitive for a lot of us, and that's kind of the point, right? That's kind of the beauty of being a coach, is that you're going to be able to see objectively, like they think this is a tiger, but it's not. So that's the beauty of having a coach and being a coach, is that your mind has created all these tigers that are chasing you. But a coach can look at it and be like, oh, honey, that's not a tiger at all. But not in a like, it's not a tiger at all. Like, how could you think it's a tiger? How stupid is that? How ridiculous is that? With compassion, you get to be like, oh my gosh, that makes sense. But yeah, no, that's not a tiger. And you can see that. That's the beauty of having a coach, is having them be able to see those blind spots where your mind has decided that it is a tiger and it is not actually a tiger. Okay? So it's gonna seem counterintuitive a lot of the times, because a lot of the times, especially to us, right? Logically, we might look at our client situation and think, oh my God, that it just looks awful. Or even like friends, right? We might think like, God, their situation, it just looks awful and painful to us, because that is our schema. We think what they have is the tiger, okay? But to them, they believe that there is a worse opportunity, a worse possibility, a worse alternative to their current comfort zone. Their mind does, right? Their unconscious ego mind does. So they're going to shut down opportunities. They're not even going to see them, right? The ego is so strong and so smart and so tricky. It's going to put blinders on so that your clients can't even see certain opportunities, because the mind is like, can't see it, there's a tiger that's close to that. Can't see it, there's a tiger that's close to that. So they're going to get stuck in things like confusion and I don't know what to do, and I don't know why this isn't working. When really all of those things are just the ego trying to distract them from the tiger that it perceives. So the ego is really sneaky and tricky like this. And that's the ego's job. And here's the other huge thing that I see as a huge mistake that coaches and people in the personal development world make, is that they make the ego wrong and bad. And that just, it makes it worse, right? It's like making a child wrong for wanting candy. Just because the child wants candy, like, yes, I want candy. There's nothing wrong with wanting candy, right? Now, you may not be able to have candy all the time, but there's nothing wrong with wanting it, okay? And so the ego is doing its job of keeping us alive. Like if we didn't have an ego, we would walk up to a real tiger and we would, we would get eaten, okay? So the ego isn't wrong. It isn't bad. It's actually it would be like being mad at our lungs, right? It is an important function. So we don't need to get rid of it. We don't need to chastise it. In fact, one of the biggest problems I see people have is their relationship to their ego is very much like, I gotta get rid of you. I have to convince you that you are wrong, which actually just makes the ego fight back harder, just like a rebellious child. It's like the more you push on it, the more it pushes back on you. Versus if you change your relationship to the ego, if your clients change their relationship to the ego, they can get a much different result. The ego, there's this beautiful part of it, right? It's the reason that we can drive and we can kind of drive on automatic. We don't have to think about our foot on the brake and, our hands on the steering wheel. And, there are beautiful things about like having autopilot. It allows us to do a lot in our life. But the point is that when there are certain things that we do on autopilot that we have to kind of pattern interrupt. So not everything that's on autopilot is bad either, right? Some of that stuff is really helpful. It really allows us to do multiple things at the same time. But there are certain things that we have on autopilot that we need to pattern interrupt so that we can see new things, we can explore new things, we can create new opportunities for ourselves, and our clients can do that too. So that's kind of how the ego operates. It's sort of like, I'm on autopilot here, right? Like, I think that's a tiger. I think that's a tiger. I think that's a tiger, right? And so there's nothing wrong with that, except for the fact that, like, if you want to create something new, you're going to have to stop it from, staying on autopilot and just say, hey, listen, ego, there's a little bit of new information we need here so that you can shift that autopilot a little bit. And when you know how to work with the ego is usually like, oh, that's it? Cool. Okay, we can shift that autopilot. Now, you do have to do a little bit of work here, right? And the ego's going to push back on you some here. But at the end of the day, it's often not as hard as we think that it is. And it's not as like, as we think it's going to be if we know how to have that relationship with the ego, if we know how to engage with it. So the ego, it can't take on, a total schema shift all at once. We often have to kind of work with it, give it a little bit of information, let it kind of, work with that, give it a little bit more information, have it work with that. And then slowly but surely we can start to shift that autopilot to something else that we want to see. We can start to retrain the ego to say, that's not a tiger. Oh, and because that's not a tiger, now I can do things I wasn't able to do before. So let's talk about marketing, right? So a lot of times people don't want to market because they're afraid to get visible. They're afraid to share their message because they're afraid of rejection. Well, for the ego thinks that rejection is the tiger, okay? And so all we have to do is tell the ego, hey, like, if people reject us, it's actually not the end of the world. Now, it's not that easy, right? Like, we know that if it was that easy, then everybody would be open and not have any fear of rejection. But that's kind of like an oversimplified first step in the process, is to start to give that ego a little bit of like thought, something to chew on, to be like, well, hey, what if rejection's not actually that bad? What if we can't actually be rejected? What if the only person who can reject us is us? And what if there are what if there are billions of people in the world, and even if this small population rejects us, there's this whole other part of the world that might love us for that. So it's kind of, you start to shift that, right, with the ego. And then when you can do that, right, before your clients were like, oh, this marketing thing isn't working, this marketing thing isn't working, and this marketing thing isn't working, but really they just weren't putting themselves out there enough. And so when they start to shift that perception, and they can see that, oh, okay, like, rejection isn't really this big bad tiger, okay? They're going to start to be willing to get more visible, to put themselves out there more. They're going to start to see opportunities to put themselves out there. They're going to, reach out to people that they weren't willing to reach out to before, and that's going to create new opportunities, and the results are going to change because of that. But can you see how, if you think that rejection is this big bad tiger that's going to eat you, your ego is going to be like, oh, I don't know how to get leads. Oh, I don't know how to get clients. Well, it's like you didn't try all these things, all these opportunities, because you were scared to do them, because you were avoiding doing them, because your mind thought it was a tiger. Make sense? So that's going from the default worldview to the desired worldview. Now, our first job is to open up the perceived pain that comes along with getting what they want, okay? What our clients want. And so this is what we call a double bind. What do they think is the tiger? We want to figure out, what do they think is the tiger? And so, they might, let's say you're a love coach, right? And maybe they think that they want this great love partnership, but unconsciously, they're actually afraid that if they get a partner, they're either going to, one of two things is going to happen. They're not going to get to be who they want to be. They're not going to be able to set boundaries to get what they want in the relationship, or the partner is going to leave them if they do set those boundaries, okay? So unconsciously, that client might be thinking, I either get my needs met or I don't get to be in a relationship. That's the or. So there's a double bind in their mind, right? It's like, if I get what I want, either this or this happens. And both of those things suck. The or sucks, right? They want both of those things, but in their mind, they have to choose between them because they don't get to have both at the same time. And so if your client is single, that means that they've chosen to get their needs met. If they are in a relationship, your client is likely unhappy and resentful. So our worldview and the results that we have, and the results your clients have, it shows you which of the two or they have chosen. And if you dig deep enough, you can figure out what the or is. And then based on what their results are, you can see which or they've chosen, which or is more of their comfort zone than the other. So maybe some common double binds would be, I can have money or I can have freedom, right? Because a lot of people associate money with stress, and they feel trapped, and they're just constantly having bombarded with demands, and there's tons of responsibility in having money. They have clients coming at them all the time, right? Maybe they think I can have clients or I can have peace. Maybe they think I can have a better boss or I can have more money. I can't have both, a better boss and more money. If I have more money, it means I'm going to have a really crappy boss. If I have a good boss, it means I'm going to have to get paid really crappy. I can have approval or I can dress how I want, right? Let's say you're an image coach or an image consultant, you help people dress. Maybe they think if I dress how I want, people are going to think I look stupid. Or they think or people are going to like how I look, but man, I don't feel right in these clothes. Make sense? But the clearest way to see the double bind is to take action towards your goals. So you go back to class number 1 where I talked about setting goals. And so once you've set the goals, you're going to start to see what is that perceived double bind in your client's mind. What do they think are their choices? What do they think is the or when they get what they want? So one of the best questions that you can ask your clients, you can ask yourself, if you get what you want, whatever result it is that you want to create that's new, what are you most afraid is going to happen? And I'll tell you what, it's super common for people to say, nothing, I'm super excited to get what I want, right? But you just kind of want to slow down with people here and be patient with them. And here's the thing, if you don't see this for yourself, you're definitely not going to be able to help other clients see it. So you have to slow down. If you can't see this for you, you're going to have to slow down with you and to be able to see this for yourself. So just be patient with you, be patient with them here to answer this question, because eventually if you keep asking it and you ask it in different ways, and I often ask people to just slow down, or I give them examples of things that, other people think are scary that are going to happen, right? So if you get 50 clients, are you going to feel the weight of the world on your shoulders to get them results? If you get more money, are you afraid that all your family is going to see you as super greedy? If you get love, are you afraid that you're going to be smothered and you won't be able to get what you want or what you need in that relationship without that person leaving? And sometimes people, they resonate with that, and sometimes people will be like, no, it's not that, but oh my gosh, it is this, right? So you just kind of want to be slow with people there. So once you've identified, so that will give you their double bind right there, right? You will see, I can have money or I can have stress, or, I can have clients or I can have peace. And so once you've identified that double bind and you can clearly see in their current results which of the two they've chosen, which is less painful for their mind, which is more of the comfort zone to their ego, which is better to the ego, this is what you do next, okay? You wanna write this down, all right? So the goal, once you've seen the double bind, okay? The goal is not to try to convince the ego to want the opposite, all right? So if they're in the space of like, I can have love, or I can have, I can have love, but I'm afraid of being smothered, right? I'm really worried that, someone's gonna smother me. The goal is not to convince the ego that you should just want to be in a relationship. It's okay, it's okay to be smothered. Like you should want to be smothered. Don't worry about being smothered. Just ignore that, right? If you ignore that, same thing's going to keep happening over and over and over again. They will repeat the same thing. And even if they do get into a relationship, guess what's going to happen? They're going to feel smothered, and they're going to sabotage it. They're going to leave. So the goal is actually to challenge the or, okay? So, so let's use that example again. So let's say your client thinks that she can either get her needs met or she can be in a relationship where the other person gets all their needs met and they don't get any of their needs met. So since you know that your client is single right now, that's what they've chosen. They've chosen that they'd rather have what they want instead of being in a relationship where she believes she's going to have to repress what she wants. and or risk the rejection of being alone again, because that's really what she's afraid of, is that if she gets into a relationship and she shares what she wants, that person's going to leave her. Okay? And so if she does get into a relationship, because this is the unconscious dialogue that's going on, and because that is her expectation, that is what's going to actually happen. She will choose somebody who will reject her for asking for what she wants. That's just how it works. She will expect them to do it. They will play into that, and it won't matter what they say. She'll find ways to see that that's what they're doing, and that's all that she will be able to see, and so that's what will happen. So you can also see, if you look at her past relationship patterns, you'll see, like, what happened? Why did it end? What, were you able to share what you wanted? What happened when you shared what you wanted? What showed up? And so how you're going to coach her on that is not, again, the idea that you're going to have to choose between a relationship. And that is not that you're going to have to be in a relationship and repress what you want, or to attract people who are going to reject her for what she wants. But the goal is not to stay in the same reality either, right? She wants to express herself. She wants to share who she is and share love. If you go back to class 1, right, I talk about what the true goal is here for them and why they need the mirror. So the goal is to see what that or is, and challenge it, right? So her job, and your job as her coach, is you're going to guide her to see that she can start to see that people do not leave when she speaks up for what she wants. And it may have to be very, very small. It may start like, my doorman, when I asked to be, for my package to be, for him to call me when my package got here. I don't know where that example came from. He didn't leave. He didn't say no. He gave me what I needed. It wasn't that big a deal, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, the ego can take in like a little bit of information at a time, and so you're going to want to start to build that evidence just a little bit at a time, like little small things. Oh, I asked my kids to come, to come to lunch with me, and they said yes. Or here's the other thing. I asked my kids to come to lunch with me. They said no, but they still didn't leave me, and they said that they wanted to have lunch with me another time. Or because it is going to happen, right? They're going to ask for what you want, and they're going to say no, and they're going to leave, right? That's going to happen sometimes too. And so when that happens, it's like, okay, and this happened, and I was okay, and I didn't die, and it was fine. Like, it wasn't a big tiger. It didn't eat me. So there's a lot of ways that you want to look at it, a lot of different angles you want to look at it from. But ultimately, she needs to see evidence that there are people out there who, when she speaks up and gets her needs met, there are enough people out there who love her for who she is, that she can speak up and be in relationship, and not everybody is going to leave her. And all she needs is one person who loves her and lets her speak up and loves that she speaks up, even like that, right? But it's going to be it's going to be small steps at a time, right? The ego's not going to go 180 all at once. It's going to be little things that build on each other. And finally, the new autopilot is going to be, I can start to, not everybody in the world needs to be like this. Only a few people do. And they exist, and they love me, and they want to be with me, and they're not going to leave me if I share who I am. And now I can actually be in that kind of a relationship, because my mind isn't seeing this double bind. It's not seeing the or. But the reason the or was created in the first place is because probably somewhere in childhood, or somebody in their past spoke up, was left, and the ego perceived it as this huge pain and as this huge rejection. And yes, as a child, that we are dependent. We are looking to the world to take care of us. And so we perceive these little things as tigers, because actually as children, they are more tigers. They truly are more tigers to us than they are as adults, right? It's like, if we're rejected as a child, our safety could be threatened, right? And so our filter of that and our perception of that isn't necessarily wrong, but as an adult, it's not the same thing at all. We have our full mind to use. We have our full body to use. We have a lot more resources available to us. So it gets created when we're younger, and it gets reinforced as this really terrible thing that we need to be very afraid of, and we need to do everything that we can so that we can survive. And again, that's okay. It's a survival mechanism as a kid, and it's a beautiful, perfectly natural, human, normal thing. But as an adult, we have to start to see what was a tiger as a kid is not a tiger as an adult. And that's the opportunity. So now, and this is also what happens, right? So if you have clients that they change circumstances, they change bosses, they change partners, and they're still unhappy, this is what's happening. So you have to uncover that double bind so they can actually get into the kind of relationship that they want, whether it's with a boss or a client or a partner or a friend or parent. And they are actually at peace and can be happy and share who they are in that relationship. So write this down. Here's the order. Number one, you want to see the double bind, okay? You want to see the double bind. It's going to show up in the action and in the pursuit of going towards those external goals. Number two, you want to challenge it. You want to see a different truth. And so you as the coach, right, your job is to be able to spot, like, they think that's a tiger. So I have to kind of give them a little bit of wiggle room to start seeing that it's not a tiger. Now, if you as the coach believe it's a tiger, you won't be able to do this, right? So the more you do your own work and you can start to see, oh, these things aren't tigers, the easier it's going to be for you to coach other people through these things. So number two is you want to challenge that it's actually a tiger. Number three, you need to integrate that it's not a tiger. And what that means is that every single day you intentionally look for evidence that this thing you think is a tiger is not a tiger, or even if there's a little bit of pain involved, you are able to handle it. It's not going to eat you, right? Like, rejection isn't a tiger, and even though rejection is painful, it's not going to kill you. You are stronger than rejection. So you have to integrate it. That's a practice, a daily practice, and that's, you give the ego a little bit of information, then you give it a little bit more, and then you give it a little bit more, and a little bit more, and eventually, as you integrate it, and this is a discipline day to day, it's going to be a new autopilot. And on that new autopilot, a new reality is going to reflect a new truth. Because now, again, like using the example of the client who was afraid of marketing because they perceive rejection as a tiger, right? So if you start to help them see that rejection is not a tiger, if they start to be able to feel rejection and be okay, it's not the end of the world. And I can see that there are actually people out there who aren't going to reject me, right? It's like, okay, now I'm going to start to see that I can reach out to that person, I can reach out to that person, I can talk to this person, I'm not scared to talk. I have all these new opportunities that they couldn't see before because they thought it was a tiger start to show up, start to appear. Same thing in dating, right? They think there's no good men out there, or no good women out there. But once they start to realize, oh, rejection is not so bad, I'm willing to go on a date with somebody, and it's not a big deal if it doesn't work out. Versus like, oh, I'm bracing myself for rejection. Of course you're not going to want to go out on dates. And of course it's all you're going to see. So you're not going to see an opportunity to somebody who doesn't reject you, right? Because to the mind, again, remember, to the ego, it's like if it's even like a remote possibility there might be a tiger involved, it's going to see that, even if it's not that. So it's like, if the ego perceives rejection as a tiger, right? If somebody says something like, oh, those are interesting shoes. Well, one person's going to be like, cool, yeah, they are interesting. I love my shoes. Another person might take that comment and be like, what's wrong with my shoes? Because the ego believes that rejection is a tiger, and so it's looking for rejection everywhere so that it can avoid it, so that it can stay as far away from it as possible. Make sense? All right, and so again, that's when a new experience of the world is going to be created, and you're going to be able to help them get into that desired experience of the world. Okay, so here are a few more coaching questions, and this is pretty much the end of this lesson. So if you have questions now, please go ahead and put them in the comments so I can answer them. Or anything that you want to share about what you've learned today, takeaways, ahas, insights, whatever, please share them in the comments. But here are a few more coaching questions for your clients. You may want to re-listen to this again, write them down, to open up the double bind, be free of it, and be able to ultimately change their worldview into their default worldview into their desired worldview. So the first question, what you can ask your clients, what do you want? Right? We talked about that all in class 1. Number 2, how do you want to feel when you get what you want? Same thing as class 1. Now we get into the default worldview, okay? Number 3, what do you have right now? Number 4, how do you see your pattern of behavior supporting your results? Number 5, what's so scary about not meeting your goals? Number 6, what scares you the most about getting what you want? That's the key question right there. And then just to really, just to get them back into the place of like, okay, again, the ego is going to put up all the stops, right? And so all you want to do is just come back to the part of them that, because we are more than an ego, right? The ego is one part of us. We are so much more than an ego. We have other parts of our mind. One of those is this like higher desire to express ourselves, to express our calling. So you want to come back to that with question number 7, which is your desire for what you want stronger than your fear? And number 8, are you committed to focusing on the feeling that you want over everything? All right. So, and just as a last thing, just remember, okay, if you keep getting clients who are stuck on the same tiger over and over again, right? If you are stuck with prospects who are saying no and keep seeing the same fear and the same tiger over and over again, you want to look at your perception, your default worldview. Why is this your double bind? Okay. So if you want to take your clients to new places, you have to take yourself to new places. You have to shift you have to know, in order to be a coach, like a really effective coach, you have to be able to shift your default worldview into your desired worldview. And again, it's an evolution, right? Coaches are not perfect. They're not, gods and goddesses, right? But they do have to be diligent. The best coaches are diligent about their own personal development work so that you can continue to guide people where you have been. And in your own thinking, and if you keep constantly bumping up against, and here's the thing, if you find yourself constantly trying to convince your clients at certain places, this is where you want to look at, what is this reflecting about my mind? How is this reflecting my default worldview? And so again, like this kind of work, this depth of work, you cannot just do this with your clients. If you are only doing this with your clients, they're going to feel that. They're going to know, like, why are you expecting me to be more brave than you're willing to be? Why are you expecting me to face a tiger when you're not willing to face the tiger? And you just won't be able to be as effective with people because you won't know how to like laser in and go where you need to go with people because you haven't done this work for yourself. But, I had a coach once, one of my first coach training said your very first client is going to be you. You need to learn how to coach yourself. And you always have a client to practice on when you practice coaching yourself. And man, she was right. And it makes you a better coach. And I see this all the time. I see this in lots of different places. The coaches who have coaches, who are coaching themselves, who are doing their personal development work, are just light years beyond the people who are pretending to do their personal development work and wanting to fix other people, but not really willing to look at themselves. So that's kind of my last little soapbox about that. All right. What else? Questions. Do we have any questions before I wrap up? Again, if you want help tailoring this to your business, I still have, you're still welcome to join the VIP upgrade. Just let me know if you have questions about that. That's pretty much it. That's the class for today. So I don't see any questions. So please, I would love to hear your ahas, your insights, your takeaways, and more importantly, the actions you are going to take this week to integrate this into your business, into your coaching practice. So I'd love for you to share that in the Facebook group. And yeah, keep me posted on, how you're implementing this, how it's working out with your clients. Are you getting stuck at any certain points? Are you able to practice this? And then of course, in between until next week, please ask any follow-up questions that you have in the Facebook group as well. And then what else? Next week, I'm really excited. We are talking again, make sure you mark it on your calendar to show up live. We're talking about dealing with client impatience. Before I talk about that, please keep your eye out too. Later this week, probably tomorrow or maybe Friday, I will be posting another laser coaching on the class today. So you can see it in action, and I will be explaining why I did what I did, how I took the client to where I wanted to take them, and why, so that you can do that with your clients as well. And if you missed it, I also did that with the the first class, there is a laser coaching audio of me taking somebody through the process that I taught in class 1 as well. So make sure that you check that out. Keep your eye out for the laser coaching I'll be posting for today's class. And then next week, mark your calendar, we are talking about dealing with client impatience. I know a lot of y'all told me about that. That was frustrating to you. So I'm really excited to talk about it because it's really, really, really critical that you know how to deal with it. Because again, a lot of coaches out there are making the mistake of just trying to tell their clients, just be patient, just be patient, just be patient, when the reason that they're impatient is actually the same reason why they're repelling what they want. So if you understand the psychology of their impatience, you're going to actually be able to help them get back to their results and their goals faster and feel better about it. So you need to know exactly how to leverage it, because if you just try to get them to be less patient and less impatient or more patient, you know, they're gonna hit brick walls because you don't know how to help them through that patience in a way that even if they get what they want, again, like they're not gonna like the results. They're gonna get the same results that they got before, kind of back to that double bind. So yeah, really excited to talk about that. We're gonna talk to, you know, we're gonna talk about how do you guide them to pursue goals without attachment. Because a lot of you, again, this is one of those more advanced concepts. I know some of you have learned about, some of you haven't. It's talked about a lot in Eastern philosophy that attachment is the root of suffering, but it's very, very misunderstood. People believe it to be detachment, which it is not. It is not the same thing as apathy at all. It is not pretending not to care. But the reality of attachment, it is critical to peace and success and happiness, and learning how to work with non-attachment, which again is not the same thing as apathetic and not the same thing as detached. And if your clients, if you work with it like that, as you know, apathy or detachment, number one, they're not going to reach their goals. People are going to feel numb. They're just going to kind of like not live life. It's not real peace. It's just pretending. We're going to be talking about the difference between higher desire goals and ego-driven goals, and why that matters to really true peace and true inner fulfillment, and how that's going to keep your clients focused and on track without getting so much pushback on their impatience. And then really working with the frustration, you know, impatience, agitation, and really get to the heart of why they're really stuck. So really excited about next week's class. I will see y'all there. And of course, keep me posted about any questions in the meantime. All right, take care. Bye.